Compilation errors are something that you're going to have to deal with. Rarely are you going to be able to write an application and it's going to compile perfectly the first time. When you compile an application within Oracle, it does things a little differently, and it's actually kind of neat. I really like this quite a bit, to be quite honest. So, when you compile an application, if it is successful, the program unit is ready for execution. It gets added into the database and it says, hey, I'm valid, I can run right now. And that's a good thing. But if you have an error, if the compilation fails due to errors, it still gets stored to the database. So Oracle doesn't just say, okay, I don't want this thing. It's totally wrong and I want nothing to do with it. No, on the contrary, Oracle says, okay, I'll store it because I don't want you to have to rewrite everything. I'll keep track of it, but I'm going to put it in an invalid status. So you can't run it until it's all fixed. And you will get an error something like this, where it says, warning, execution completed with warning. And it'll say function salary valid compiled. So it'll tell you it compiled, but it's going to tell you that there were some problems with it. And you will even be able to see this when you're inside of the SQL developer environment. I'm going to show you this here in a little bit. Now, when it fails, it automatically places those errors inside of a view called user errors. And so now, since it's inside of this view, you have the ability to generate a report, or you can even query that view saying, hey, I want to select all from user errors, and it'll show you all of the errors for all of your applications, for any program that has an error. What's also neat is that if you fix that, all of those errors will disappear out of the user errors view. But here's an example of an errors report right here, where you can see what line it is. It tells you a lot of detail. It also tends to give you a lot of stuff that you probably don't care about. But these are all of the errors that Oracle knows about for each object that gets compiled. Now, when you want to generate an error, you can use that show errors command, but then you define what object you want to work with. So you can say show errors, and I want to see only procedure errors. So if you stopped right there, you'd be able to see all your procedure errors. But if you also put in the name, you can see all of the errors associated to that object. And it gives you a means of going back and taking a look at it. Now, this is handy, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to go to the user errors view to find out what problems I have with a particular program. I'm just going to open it back up again, recompile it, take a look at it, and I can use the error log inside of SQL Developer, and I can double click on those errors and it will take me to that location. It's very handy. But I'm going to show you both ways. And also, one thing I want to point out to you is that the show errors command can be fired from SQL Plus or the SQL Developer environment. It does not matter. So let's take a look at it. Inside of SQL Developer, I've already opened up the project called ErrorProc. And this thing is riddled with errors. There are all kinds of problems with this thing. So it will not compile successfully. To see this, open it up and just press F5. So I press F5 and, oh, hold on here. Need to click on it. Press F5. And it says procedure error salary compiled, but errors. And it says check the compiler log. So I can check the compiler log using the show errors command, but another thing that's really neat about SQL Developer is down here at the bottom, here's my compiler log, and it says error 20,14. If I double click on this, it automatically takes me to that line. So it says here's the problem. And my problem, the one thing you need to remember is that when you double click on something, it may put you on that line, but it may put you one line below. So keep that in mind as well. And it all depends if you have, well, you'll always get that if you have the set server output on, and then you have a couple lines, it's always going to be off a little bit. But if I double click on this, the problem is not in the raise percent, oh, actually it is. I have a couple errors right there. I have two errors. One is employee percent doesn't have an underscore, and the other one is percent underscore too high. There's no underscore there as well. So by leaving this out, it looks like it's got two parameters and it has no idea what I'm talking about. Now, as you fix each one of these errors, the next time you compile, that log will get smaller and smaller and smaller. But before I do that, I want to take a look at this error log that is stored by Oracle. So if I go over to my error report, I have two ways of doing this. I have my show errors, and I want to see the show errors for procedure error salary. So if I use that one, I'm going to highlight it, press F5. Yes, I want to use system. And here are all of those errors, and I can scroll right through there. So it looks pretty much like what I showed you in that screenshot. And there are a bunch of them. But the other thing I can do, remember, all of those errors are stored in a view called user errors. So if I want to see that, I can use this select command. I can just run a query. Select star from user errors. Press F5. 7 rows are selected. And here it shows each one of these. Now, the thing is notice that it wraps. That's the one drawback to this. If you use the view, it's going to wrap these things. So it says, oh, well, this one's very wide, so it'll show the first set, and then it's going to go down the next line, and it's going to show the ancillary things after the fact. So it depends on how wide your screen is and how much you want to work with it. If you just want the show error report, there you have it. So it shows each one of those errors. Now the other thing I want to point out to you is that this command, or this program that we just created, is in the database. And you can see this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just zoom in right over here. So here's my raise salary. So I see raise salary and I see raise salary valid. And if I select procedure and select refresh, now I have error salary. Now error salary is the name of that procedure. It didn't, SQL or Oracle did not put that error name in there. But what it did do, notice that there's a red X. That X is telling me that this procedure is not valid. It cannot be executed at this time because there are errors. So this is something that you want to pay attention to. When you see a red X, it tells you that there's something wrong with this particular procedure or function. And if you want to see it, all you have to do, since I know error salary is the problem, you just go over here, say show errors procedure, since it's in the procedures list, error salary, semicolon, and it's going to show you all of those. So it's a very neat feature of how Oracle tracks all this stuff for you. I highly recommend you use it.